Hey everybody, welcome back to Force Chatter. We are going to give our thoughts tonight on the Book of Boba Fett. We are going to close the book on the first season. We're going to give our thoughts on the last couple of episodes and then our thoughts overall on what we thought of the series. Was it good Star Wars? Was it awesome? Was it a disappointment? Did it fall somewhere in between? We're going to go over that tonight. But first, I'm Eric, and I'm here tonight with Lou and Tim. Tim, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm in the Star Wars mentality. Lou and I went to a Star Wars night at an AHL hockey game.
I heard that
last night, and Mud troopered up. It was the first time I had trooped in over a couple of years, since just prior to the pandemic. Yeah. So it was fun. It was a good time.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So
lots,
I gotta
lots
ask,
of fans, people taking pictures.
How well did you guys fit in those little tiny sports stadium seats with all that gear on?
We didn't. We spent the entire time on our feet, walking around the concourse.
At least you had comfortable shoes.
Pictures. Lou had comfortable shoes.
I had comfortable shoes.
Unfortunately, have the original spec on the Mud Trooper boots, which is a Soviet era boot, and they're not comfortable.
No, they're not. No. I remember the U.S. military issue boots were not comfortable. I can just imagine what the old antique Soviet era ones were like.
Yeah.
Hey, chat room, how you guys doing tonight? Welcome. It's good to have you here. And Lou, it's good to have you here too. The one on the team Who knows how to buy good footwear.
Yeah, I opted not for the original, the OG military boot, and I opted for a little plug. Imperial Boots makes some fantastic footwear. A little bit pricier than finding surplus Soviet era boots from World War II online, Tim. But hey, my feet are important to me.
Probably worth it. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. It's hard with everything that's been going on with the pandemic to be able to find opportunities to go out as a group and participate in Star Wars things, or even just as a group at all. I actually got out for the first time in at least 5 years, probably 10 years. I went out to an event to socialize where I knew absolutely nobody save one person. I went to a gaming store that I used to go to occasionally to try to play X-Wing, but nobody there played X-Wing. They all played Magic the Gathering. This is about 10 years ago and a couple towns away. So my son was visiting last weekend, and we went up to the mall one town away, and there was a gaming store in there all of a sudden. And I'm like, wow, that name looks familiar. That's the name from a couple towns up. Boy, that guy's going to be pissed. I bet he's going to sue. Let me go in here and check this out. And it turns out it was the same guy. He'd been there for like 6 or 7 years. I just hadn't gone to that mall for anything. And he remembered me and everything. We sat and talked for like an hour and a half.
Cool. I'm sure your son loved that.
Actually, my son was looking for Pokemon cards, which scalpers have destroyed the gaming market for. You can't find cards. And but he decided Magic the Gathering had a D&D crossover this past year, and my son saw that and got hooked. So we bought a couple starter decks and played, and then
nice.
Yeah, so I actually went back Friday night and played in their little casual. They play the Commander format, so I bought a starter deck, and of course I won because.
Wow, nice.
I don't know if I ever have good luck in something. It's something that's completely inconsequential. But anyway, so back to Star Wars and stuff. It's good to be able to get out and do that kind of thing. It's been a long time.
It is, one thing that Tim and I didn't talk about last night about the troop was I was actually impressed with the sheer number of fans that were wearing Star Wars stuff.
Oh yeah, tons.
Both kids in costume and just adults wearing T-shirts or whatever. I was really impressed. It was most fans. Well, they either had a jersey on for hockey for the team they're supporting, or Star Wars stuff.
Yeah,
I was really impressed with how many people actually had Star Wars stuff. I was like, that's really awesome.
Yeah,
and shout out to the Rebel Legion and the Saber Guild that were there with us as well. We had probably was it 20, 25 people probably in costume.
Nice.
Yeah, just about.
For a hockey game.
Really,
that's good.
Yeah, really good turnout. And yeah, my thanks to the Connecticut Garrison, because I'm not from Connecticut. for allowing me to crash the party. So.
Well, it was nice because the Mud Troopers were there in force. We had 2 of us there.
Yes.
Otherwise, we had we had a Vader with us. We had a Wookiee,
an Emperor,
a Snowtrooper, Emperor. Yeah, the Emperor was there.
Yeah, Boba Fett.
And it was good. Boba Fett was there. Yep.
Yeah, the Boba Fett looked good. I saw the pictures.
Yeah,
he's got a really good Boba Fett, and he's actually building a. Speaking of our show tonight, a Book of Boba Fett.
Nice. See, I like that costume so much better.
Yeah.
I mean, the original OG is good, but the new one with the dark colors is just
it's more modern. Yeah. I mean, we've got Celebration coming up before too long. I know some people
less than 90 days away.
I decided to duck out. Too many logistical hurdles. Some COVID related, some not. So I am not attending this year, and I have to say I'm a little bit legitimately depressed about it, but. There will be more. I know a lot of other people had to make tough decisions at the last minute as far as whether to go or not. You guys are both going, and Carrie is going to be going. So Random Chatter Network will be representing at Celebration.
Yep.
So that's pretty exciting.
We'll bring you with us, Eric. We'll have you there in spirit, and we'll also have you there on Skype.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys better FaceTime me in for some stuff there.
We could do a giant Eric cardboard cutout to haul around with us.
You know, Lou.
We could all cosplay.
Lou did
K2SO
before with the polls and stuff. We could have Eric's face in a backpack Eric. And be the little Yoda on Luke's back.
Yeah.
Put a little elf ears on me and stuff.
Or have it over to the side instead of above. Have it over to the side, so once in a while he could turn to you and swear at you or say derogatory things or whatever.
Yeah, hit a button and you can have a little soundbite of me doing the Yoda giggle.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, I could do the cosplay. I saw a lot of people doing this past summer for Venom, where they would have put a hoodie on and have his arm in a thing with the head, and his other arm, the real arm, down tucked into his pocket, and he's talking. There was a couple good guys at one of the cons I went to this summer doing that, and the Venom head would follow somebody around behind them, and
that's kind of cool.
I was like, that's clever. Yeah,
nicely done.
Yeah. All right. Well, today we're going to discuss the Book of Boba Fett. If only they hadn't scheduled the finale the week of the Super Bowl. Just saying.
Yeah, that was the first thing that threw our schedule, and then the last couple of weeks
the week before that crazy, too, actually. So. Yeah, I think you were out the week before that.
Yeah.
We were all out for the Super Bowl. I'll include myself in that, even though I don't really care about the Super Bowl. I did watch the game though, for once. So, and then last week I couldn't. It's just been bad timing, but
yeah.
We've got the last couple of episodes to talk about. We're going to change the format up a little bit for this episode. We're just going to hit the milestones from the last 2 episodes, and then we're going to talk a little bit about just our thoughts. Where does this fit in with the modern age of Star Wars, and how do we feel about it? Okay. So the second to last episode, From the Desert Comes a Stranger. This is episode 6 of the series. Let's see here. I think the big things about this, we got Din Djarin going to see Luke. He meets Ahsoka instead. He wants to give the chainmail Beskar shirt to Grogu. Mm-hmm. We get a training montage between Grogu and Luke. Din Djarin leaves and goes back to the palace. And we have a brief scene, very brief, with Boba Fett. And then at the very end, we get Cad Bane, which I want to talk about that just a little bit, and then I want to go back to episodes 5 and 6 in general. So Cad Bane, I have to say, this turned out so much better in live action than I expected it to. Now, I did see, so there's a channel on YouTube that does they go through and do different takes on special effects from different things in Star Wars, and they do it respectfully, and they do a really, really good job of it. And they made a version of Cad Bane that looks a little closer to the way he looked in Clone Wars. I liked that a little bit better, but even putting that off to the side, this looked amazing. The facial expression, the detail, the kind of snarling look on his nose at the end of this episode. like looked intimidating. I was impressed.
See, I'm totally okay with live action characters and animated characters not looking exactly alike. I think that the Cad Bane that we got was actually better than the one that the YouTube guys recreated.
Okay.
And I'm the same way with Ahsoka. I'm totally fine with their, yes, I acknowledge that there are differences between live action Ahsoka and animated Ahsoka. And I mean, hey, there's even differences between the Clone Wars Ahsoka and the Rebels Ahsoka. And I'm not just talking age. I mean, you have animation style, so you have things that are a little bit different. And of course, everyone flipped out because, live action Ahsoka, the head tails are shorter and all this. She looks fine. She looks great.
Yeah.
Thrilled to have
There's
a live action
practical
character.
reason for that too. I mean, the
of course
prosthetics, you can't do a lot of that action stuff with floppy rubber things hitting you in the face.
And like Tim said, I mean, I'm totally okay with the fact of Cad Bane looking a little different than the animation style. My first thing I thought was like, wow, his face isn't as thin. It looks off.
The skull shape looked different, but it still looked good. Like I have a preference.
Exactly.
I prefer one. You prefer the other.
Right. I mean, noticing the differences is fine.
Absolutely.
It's just not a problem. Just because I notice there's a difference doesn't mean it's like, oh my God, I'm not going to watch this because it's different.
So you guys liked it, right? It looked good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was fine for me.
I was thoroughly impressed, and I love like when he appeared. I mean, when you're like, I think maybe this is gonna happen, like, and then they just like pan the camera in this old style Western type of thing, and there he is with the dude with the hat, and you're like, that is Cad Bane. That is freaking awesome.
Right.
And you knew things were not going to go well because we know Cad Bane is like an incredible shot.
Yeah.
So this was not going to go well.
And you notice he shoots the marshal once in the shoulder, and then the deputy he nails like 6 or 7 times right in the chest.
Oh yeah,
because he was pissed.
Because the deputy dared to interfere with the one-on-one thing. He was.
So he's going to let the other guy walk away, but the deputy, no, you're done, dude. You messed up.
But that was also very Clone Wars.
Yeah,
because that is all like. Bane would, sometimes he would take the single shot, and sometimes if he really wanted to off somebody, he would, unleash 5-6 shots at him. That's very typical to the character. So I love that they translated that into live action also. They
kept the character true to what we knew of Cad Bane in both episodes, and I really appreciated that. They did a good job with that.
He is like one of the more cerebral of the bounty hunters.
Oh yeah.
He always has been. He looks at it's there's the job, but then there's also the how do I make myself look better with the job? How do I manipulate things a little bit better that it's not only going to get me this job, but it's going to, keep my reputation up. So I'm going to get other jobs. He wasn't just about, get the body, bring him in warm or cold. That was never Cad Bane. He's really super cerebral. And he knows he's good at what he does.
But he also doesn't really honor the code as well either. I mean, he's definitely a villain bounty hunter as opposed to...
He's a double crosser.
Yeah, there's good guy bounty hunters, and then there's bad guy bounty hunters. So, what else? So this is, again, the second to last episode, the penultimate episode. This is the second of 2 in a row that basically didn't have Boba Fett in it. So I forget the math. It's like 31% of the Boba Fett series wasn't about Boba Fett. And it was episodes 5 and 6 out of 7 episodes. It felt weird. Now, they were good episodes. I don't know why we needed the Grogu and Luke training montage here.
That seemed a little bit long.
It was long.
Even just for what it seemed a little long. I was like, okay,
I mean, I get it. You have Grogu, and it's like an instant marketing thing. So, it's the Spider-Man of the late 70s and early 80s, and it's the Wolverine of the late 80s and early 90s. You just stick him in every book, comic, and TV show you can stick him in.
Yeah.
I get it from a marketing point of view, but it just didn't fit.
Yeah, the only thing about it that seemed wrong to me was that it seemed like you're telling a story that we didn't need to have told in this.
Yeah.
In this series, I mean, we're looking for Boba Fett stuff here, whether it's about him directly or tied with him. But this seemed forced to have it tied.
It was like they took 2 episodes to set up an excuse for why you would have Din Djarin and Grogu in the finale.
And that's exactly it. Is I think that they said, look, we need to have this logical progression, because here's where we ended up at the end of Mandalorian season 2. Mm-hmm. Here's what we want to set up for the end of Book of Boba Fett. How do we get there? And
have it be a mystery, and then we come back and revisit it at the beginning of Mando season 3. We do the 2 flashback episodes.
Yeah, which isn't entirely a bad idea. I mean, it's
because you could have had Din in this series without having to give us all the backstory. You could have given us a brief, reason for why he's there.
Most of his appearance in all this had nothing to do with why he was there for Boba Fett.
True.
I mean, that whole part of the story was Fennec Shand said, "Hey, saw your ship came in," or not even that. He said, "Hey, I heard you're in town," because I guess he didn't come in on a ship. We need a favor. Like, that's it. It was the very tail end, the last few lines of dialogue of one of the episodes. You don't need a whole backstory to justify him being there. Now, maybe Grogu you do. Have it be a mystery, though, that you then explain at the beginning of the next season.
Right.
It seems simple. But anyway, okay, so that's a thing. That's a complaint that some of us have had, but it is what it is. Then we have the finale. I'm going to be honest. I've got some mixed feelings on the finale here. I'm pulling up the original show notes here for it on my iPad. I kind of feel like the finale had a lot of good moments, but it also had a lot of moments I'm just sitting there scratching my head like, what? How did this slip through the cracks? So, for example, and I'm not trying to tear apart the finale or anything. I'm not the only one who's pointed these things out. The one scene where one of the mod gang guys, they go to shoot somebody on the street, and the guy grabs his pistol, does a complete 360-degree turn and shoots in slow motion.
Which was just like kooky. Like,
he was already aiming at the guy. He spins. It's not like he was like, it was a 180-degree turn or something. He's facing where he's shooting. He does a 360 and then shoots.
Yeah.
It made zero sense. It looked goofy and silly.
And any concept of reality, that extra second and a half that you took to shoot could mean that you're dead.
Right.
So shoot. Don't do fancy twists and twirls, and maybe they were trying to compete with the Olympics or something. I don't know. Like Olympic ice dancing.
I had an Olympic tie. It was just going to say, this is like the whole Lindsay Jacob Ellis thing of years ago where she showboated when she was so far out in the lead and then fell.
Oh, Jawa's off to the side holding his scorecards up. Yeah, Fetmatic in the chat room. Oh, no, the spin move. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, everybody was talking about that scene, and that's not the only scene like that in the finale. Like, that's probably the one that epitomizes this sort of thing. But so Boba Fett comes into town riding on the Rancor. Don't go back and get your ship, which that's another thing. Like, why didn't you just get the Slave One?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get through the shields, but have you seen how many rounds per second that thing shoots? Eventually you're going to get through the shields. Problem solved. The shields only have so much power.
Yeah. So Slave One would have made short work of those.
Right.
Droids.
And probably less collateral damage than those 2 Scorponok droids and the Rancor. Because let's face it, the Rancor was not on a leash. Just saying.
Damage, yeah.
So he comes into town riding on the Rancor. The Rancor's climbing up buildings, jumping off of buildings across the street, through walls of other buildings. Okay? This thing's all over the place.
This so reminded me. I mean, they obviously did the King Kong imagery.
Well, and then there's the climbing the tower at the very end, especially. I'm like, oh my gosh.
And so much
get the throwback thing, but
yeah, so it was like that and the video game Rampage. We're not going to talk about the movie. But yeah, the video game of Rampage and King Kong stuff. I'm
surprised they didn't have X-Wings flying around and the Rancor trying to swat him out of the air. You know? But so here's the thing that gets me, though. all of this stuff, and Boba's sitting on the back of this thing with one hand and his blaster rifle going. Just this thing's jumping all over the place, right? So then at the end, Cad Bane shows up, and from I don't know, like 20 feet away, he spits some flame out of his little flamethrower thing. The Rancor, his feet don't move. He shifts slightly at first. Boba Fett goes flying. This guy rode this Rancor, literally crashing through walls, jumping from tops of buildings to the ground, from the ground to tops of buildings, from buildings to buildings. Didn't break a sweat. The Rancor he's sitting on shifts slightly, and he doesn't just like lose balance and fall down. He goes flying through the air onto the ground. It felt silly. There were a lot of things like that in this episode. They didn't know. So the mod gang, when Fennec came to rescue him, they're pinned down and they're shooting and stuff like that. And she comes up from like over the building and snipes them and whatever. And they're like, oh, thanks. You're awesome. You saved our lives. And she's like, hey, some gratitude. You guys are awesome too. And then she walks over to her swoop bike, which was parked in the line of fire, and drives off. How did she park there and them not see her, or the bad guys not see? Nobody saw her.
I also, when they were holed up in the wreckage of the sanctuary, really wondering like why they didn't put her or someone else up on the roof, either as a spotter or a sniper or something, because like really clearly the very first assault from the gang was, shooting from elevation, from an elevated position. Sorry, there's a little bit of military strategy there that I wish Tom were here, because Tom would,
hey,
would
I'm ex-military too.
Yes, you
Air-based
also
ground defense ranger. Thank you.
But elevated position.
Yeah. No, Tim. Nobody's going to sneak up on him in there.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
They said it, so it's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Until it wasn't.
Until Cad Bane walked
right.
And
yeah.
And then until like all these enemy personnel happen to get fully into position for this assault without anyone noticing.
Yeah.
It was, there were definitely, here's the thing. If you watched it just like casually, it was both these episodes were like just simply a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, the Luke thing was slow, but otherwise, yes, a lot of fun. Yeah. I agree.
When you do start to look at things a little analytically, it's like
it falls apart.
Wow, some stuff is so painful.
There's Din and Boba Fett, middle of the street, just getting their butts handed to them, right? They just keep coming, one of them says, because they're everywhere. A guy up on the roof shoots at them. They kind of do that. They look at each other and they shoot the guy. And I counted 14 shots on this single guy from the roof to the ground. If they're surrounded and they, quote, just keep coming, you shoot the guy once and then you go back to everybody else who's shooting at you. You don't spend 14 rounds in a corpse as it's falling.
Yeah.
I know it's nitpicking, but there's a whole list of these things. What's her name? Pelimato driving into the firefight, and Din's yelling at her like, go, go, go. And she's like, what? I can't hear you. Well, you can't hear him because of all of the gunfire. That's all the warning you need that there's an issue.
Pew, pew.
Right? Like if that's why you can't hear other things, you already know what it is he's going to say to you. I didn't get that. And then the street vendors who are still in the streets with all the gunfire going on, like just one thing after another. It was weird. Boba Fett gets shot in his left arm by Cad Bane. And then throughout the epilogue is complaining about having to salute with his right arm because it hurts. Why has it got to be the right arm? Well, because that's the one that you weren't shot in. Twice shot in the left shoulder, left arm. Why's it got to be the right arm? Because it's the only one you're able to move right now, you idiot. Like, I don't understand how some of these things slipped past the writers. And I'm not, listen, what you said, Tim, it was a fun episode. It really was.
Yeah.
Maybe except Palimato. She could have been not there, shot, blown up, stepped on by a scorpion. Whatever works. I'm flexible.
Come on.
I'm open to different possibilities for the destiny of that character. Because we should all have a certain level of fluidity in our destiny. And I support that for her. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so I did like the Chrysanthemum scenes, though.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Raging Wookiee is always a good time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk this series. What'd you guys think? Just overall as a package, and compare it specifically to, The Mandalorian season 1, The Mandalorian season 2. I don't know that it's all that comparable to The Bad Batch, but within the context of what we're getting in this new era of Star Wars television, which seems to mostly be well received up until now, versus the movies which have not been well received. How does this fit for you guys, both emotionally and story-wise?
Lou?
What do you say? Yeah, Lou?
I overall, I enjoyed the series. I mean, it was good storytelling for the most part. The, characters I was invested in, I want more. On the analytical side of things, I look at this like, well, some of it doesn't make a lot of sense because, he's stepping back from his role as a bounty hunter into doing we're not sure what, because he's not really taking over Jabba's assets, because Jabba was more than just a one-time small guy on Tatooine, which is what Boba Fett seems to be taking the role of now. Whereas, Jabba had world-spanning, if not, sector-spanning power that we're seeing, and it seems like he's taking over this little role of being a little warlord on a planet that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
I don't know. I mean, it mattered enough for the Hutts to come in person, and the Pike Syndicate to come in and.
But that's what seems awkward to me about this, because he's not protecting himself on a scale that would warrant what these guys are doing.
No, he's very underpowered for what he's trying to take on. I mean, Tatooine through Mos Eisley, Mos Espa, etc., is supposed to be kind of like I don't know, an intersection, if you will, for smugglers and stuff. Like it's the point where people kind of stop and take a break and go to a window bar and they do their shady dealings and they move on. And it's like on the highway. It's like the big rest stop area.
Yeah.
But
he's taking this role on as he's just kind of holding down this one little city. I'm like, no, it should be more than that. And if you're only doing this city, you're not really a threat to these guys. So why are they even bothering with you?
Yeah, it'd be one thing if you were taking on Jabba's resources. But he's not, right? I mean, he got rid of them. He got rid of
doesn't seem that
Fortuna.
Way.
None of the local crime bosses pay attention to him. He literally has like 10 people, and he's laying claim to the planet.
Well, that's the thing. If he's not even big enough for the local crime bosses to be worried about him, why are the Pikes somebody else worried about him? And the whole thing of running spice through there, it didn't seem story-wise to be significant enough, because I'm like, wouldn't you just run spice somewhere else on the planet instead of through this one little city? I mean, and if that's the case, if you're running spice, it's not just to supply Tatooine. That's
what I don't understand.
A bigger venture than that. And why is this one city?
Mos Espa's the biggest city on Tatooine, to my knowledge, right? So I get that's if you're going to Tatooine, that's where you're going. But why go to Tatooine at all? Like.
Well, so I kind of wonder. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a lot of explanation for it. I kind of wonder if maybe it was being used as like a distribution hub of some sort, because there was minimal, quote, law enforcement there. So they could, kind of do some of this stuff, and they would have laborers and that kind of thing. And it was always, it's the wretched hive of scum and villainy. So there could be random ships coming in, going wherever, and a lot of people aren't going to pay attention to it. And yeah, so I kind of struggled with the same thing. So I was kind of trying to build a story in my head that would work, that would make sense for it, because it's like, well,
right.
It's not like they have to fly it in, put it on a train, go zip halfway around the planet, and then where does it go from there? Are they just then putting it on another ship and then flying someplace? Well, just keep flying by the planet. So
exactly, just bypass.
There had to be,
or to be a transfer in orbit somewhere, not even down in the planet.
Yeah,
so I guess I look at it as this is the seedy nightclub where people go to make the arrangements, but then the drug deals happen out at the street corner.
Sure.
And to me, the street corner would be somewhere in space. Two ships meeting up, they dock, they transfer, they depart. And Tatooine would be where you go to make the deals. I get that.
Yeah.
But why the trains? Why the actual physical presence of the spice?
Well, and there was also the situations that you got to figure there must be some local dealing going on there, because so you have the train, which presumably had, big cargo pods filled with spice. In fact, it did. They showed us that. But then you had the thing that what's his name disrupted?
Cobb Vanth.
The Cobb Vanth.
Yeah.
And it was, this tiny like jewelry box sized thing of spice. So, clearly like maybe they're like repackaging there. There's and maybe they're dealing there. There's got to be something else to it, something more complicated.
Well, it would have been nice to know.
It would have, but I'm also, I'm okay kind of not knowing. Like, I just kind of went with the story.
Yeah.
And after the fact did give some thought to it. That's like, God, that's kind of weird, but whatever. It's fine. They needed something story-wise.
The one thing that bothers me about this kind of thing is when you think about story elements in general, if it doesn't add to the story, it detracts from it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't, if it's there and it's not explained, it's a distraction. And this to me was a distraction because I never understood why this was so important and why, maybe we didn't understand what Jabba's role was fully, but, it just seems like this wider sector-wide conspiracy or, crime syndicate or whatever had, why would they even deal with this guy?
Yeah.
They would just bypass him and go somewhere else.
My son, over the last several years, has been interested in writing stories and things like that. So I've been talking to him about the structure of storytelling and that every story has to have some kind of a conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you have conflict, there needs to be motivation for the conflict and there has to be stakes. And I feel like we never really had it explained what the motivation was. Boba Fett's motivation was kind of like, I have motivation because I say so. Okay.
Yeah.
And the Pike's motivation, we still don't understand. And then the stakes, other than the death of the characters we care about, we never really understood those either. And I feel like this was one of those things where it was a nice ride. And ultimately, here's what it is. It's Star Wars. And I've been a fan since the first time I saw it, which was in 1979. And ever since, 2 years before I saw Star Wars has had plot holes.
Sure.
Okay. And we love it anyway because it's fun and it's still fun. And the Book of Boba Fett was fun. Yeah. There is a part of me as a grown-up, though, that then looks at generations of Marvel comics with plot holes that you could fly spaceships through. But the stuff they're putting on Disney Plus seems more cohesive, seems like the stories are better structured. They still get the character development in there really well. They're maybe for an older audience, but they're still so far, Moon Knight notwithstanding, which hasn't come out yet. They're still mostly family friendly. Now, Star Wars can skew even younger, which is nice. I don't know, though. I have a hard time not looking at the Marvel stuff that gets interspersed with this at a ratio of about 2 or 3 to 1 and say, why can't we get stories that are developed a little better?
Yeah.
So I don't know. For me, the Book of Boba Fett was okay. It was good. It was really good. It was not great, but it was really good. I loved seeing what they did with the character. I like this change in the character. I like the additional depth. I love the new costume. And I like the fact that we're finally getting to see him be active in Star Wars. I love that they brought Tamara Morrison back. I think overall, the Mandalorian seasons, especially the second season, might have been better. I don't know. This to me is just, it's a love-hate thing with Book of Boba Fett. I very much love it in some ways, not just like it, but absolutely love it. And then there are some other ways in which I hate it. So it's tough.
Yeah, for me, from the storytelling perspective, it's interesting that they kind of they created an overall arc at, like, we'll say, just to make things relative, that they were at like 10, level 10. Okay, so we're going to create this kind of big picture type of storyline, and okay, that's what's going to get us through this. But then they kind of jumped the whys and wherefores that occur kind of in between, and then they went straight down to like 1 and 2, where we're going to get into these really, really finite details of things. But we miss motivation. We miss that intermediary story, which is like really important in a lot of ways. But yeah, no, to me, it was a lot of fun. I liked the series a lot. I really, really did like the Boba Fett flashbacks that we got through 2/3 of the series. I like that a lot because it built a lot for the character.
It did.
It developed the character a lot. I mean, that did give us some of those whys and wherefores. It gave us some of that intermediary stuff. And it's the most Boba Fett that we've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
We needed to, and that is what Lucasfilm promised. Like, Lucasfilm promised that we are going to give you a perspective on Boba Fett that you never had before, because you only saw him on screen, prior to this for a mere amount of minutes. And we only saw him doing a certain thing. This was very, very different. It was very personal. There really was. This was a lot of very personal storytelling for Boba Fett. But then, for as much as I love the story of that full episode that we got for Mandalorian, that completely derailed it. It was so odd.
Derailed is
just
a good
give
word.
us the Mando, and then tell that story in his series. Give us a little bit of, give us 3 minutes. That's fine.
Yeah,
in Book of Boba Fett to get us there.
Yeah.
And then, do it as a flashback or something in The Mandalorian. Or hell, what they could have done is, and I know production timing can be tricky, you do the production so the productions overlap.
Mm-hmm.
So Book of Boba Fett is being released at the same time as Mandalorian Season 3 is getting released. And, Mandalorian Season 3 starts toward the end of Book of Boba Fett, where you're getting that episode in The Mandalorian where it's, that's the one that's focused on him. I don't know. I'm just throwing different concepts and different ideas out there.
I kind of feel like,
but there was so much there. And like you guys said, there was a lot with the Luke and Grogu thing, which again distracted from it. That said, still the overall storytelling of this and what we got was very satisfying to me. I really appreciated it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I still want a rat catcher droid. We need to see more of that in future episodes of anything.
We need more BD droids.
Those are good too. So yeah, that's my take on the whole thing.
I kind of feel like Grogu, we had an entire episode that felt like this is the excuse to get Grogu in the finale. And then all Grogu did in the finale was make the Rancor sleep. Boba Fett could have walked up at the end, staggered up or something and, oh, good boy, and calmed the thing down. There are 5 different methods I can think of off the top of my head that could have accomplished the same thing with the Rancor. It could have been part of the Mandalorian's journey all the way back from the second episode of The Mandalorian, where he didn't have any connection to animals. So now he's got to try to find a way to calm the Rancor down, and succeeds. All kinds of different ways to do it. Why did we need to dedicate an entire episode to getting Grogu on scene and then have Grogu kind of fall asleep and he falls down and that's it? Like, what a waste of, of time, or a misplacement of time, I should say.
Lou, by the way, likes scratches behind the ear.
Does he?
Boba Fett could have done that with the Rancor.
Did that work at the hockey game with the helmet? How did you get your hand up under the helmet like that?
That's why I wear the helmet, so we can't do that.
Must have found a way. Lou, what's your take on the series?
We make it happen.
I mean, like I said before, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it had some issues and holes, but I mean, it's still good Star Wars. I mean, I enjoyed this more than I enjoyed the sequel trilogy overall, especially with the way that wrapped up. I mean, I kind of judge stuff we're getting now versus what we've got before, kind of like, the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, the prequel trilogy, television shows as its own entity, which one was, better than the others. And this is, of the better quality Star Wars stuff we've been getting lately. Yeah. In my mind.
I mean, I would agree. Even at its worst, it felt better than the movies did. I got into a conversation about the movies with somebody Friday night at the gaming store, and it was the more I talk to people about it, whether it's at work or whatever, and like it's with strangers or with people that we're not having like deep Star Wars conversations, it's weird because it's like, they weren't really that good. As much as I've tried to defend them in the past to some extent, if you're having a very summarized conversation about the movies, you have to admit the sequels were just completely out of place and they did not work. They didn't fit well. But this did. I think that for its faults, it was good and it was fun.
Well, and like we talked briefly on, I can't remember if we talked on RandomChatter recently or our streaming show, used to be Movie Chatter. I think this is a far better way to tell stories than a movie. We're getting more content. I mean, we complain about the amount of content we got in Book of Boba Fett because
and then they took 2 episodes away.
At first we were complaining that we were getting all flashbacks and not real time stuff. But the fact of the matter is, if you get a 6, 7, 8, 10 episode series of something, you're getting a lot more content than you would get in a 2-hour movie. And they can develop characters more, they can develop concepts better, they can spend more time on details that you would never get in a movie. And so I think this is really well done storytelling. I mean, I'm sure we'll be back seeing Star Wars in the theaters at some point, but that's to be determined. They haven't released anything yet, and even released any discussion of when we're doing that yet. So
I think that, we've talked about some things that's done wrong. Some things it did right was there were a lot of questions canonically about Boba Fett, and I mean, it answered almost every single one. How he got out of the Sarlacc pit. Mandalorian season 2 explained how he got his armor back. How he met Fennec Shand. How he got the Slave One back. What he's doing now. What his motivations are now. For those who did not watch the animated series, some insight as to the character of Boba Fett. His personality and what his motivations are and who he is, his identity, something we never really got to see before. The series did those things really well.
Yeah.
We got some really good action scenes, got a couple that didn't quite fit. We had some really good action scenes. We got introduced to some good characters. I still like the mod gang thing. I know a lot of people don't. I like them. And I love Chrysanthemum. I think Chrysanthemum was a great addition. We saw live action.
Chrysanthemum's fantastic.
He really is. We saw a live action Cad Bane that worked well. He's not dead, by the way. Just want to say, if you look at the last scene, he's got the little chest plate with the blinking light, and I guess it looks like a kind of a heart monitor sort of thing, and it slows down a lot, but it continues to blink. Just saying.
I think he's dead.
Okay.
I think he's dead.
We are definitely meant to be led to believe he's dead, at the very least.
Yeah.
All indications are that he's dead.
I mean,
other than the little blinking
the blow with the
light.
pointy end of the gaffy stick, that pretty much does it.
You would think that too, but then we saw Boba Fett take much worse.
True. True.
Shot glove to the side of the face by a Wookiee. Not just a Wookiee, but like of the Wookiees, this was the gladiator one. And let me tell you, the scrawny, nerdy Wookiee who got picked on in school could still whoop my butt.
Yeah, yeah.
And Chrysanthemum is not that one. So, yeah, you're right. But, I mean, it's Star Wars. So.
It is. It is.
Yeah, but the best sleep you'll ever have is curl up in a lap of Wookiee. I'm just saying.
Never tried it. But, maybe. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode then. We do still have some other things to talk about. We've got Kenobi that is coming up before too long here. And we have some insight as to what we're getting. I don't know how much we want to talk about, but there's definitely some things to talk about. And I think that there
was the big Kenobi Super Bowl commercial trailer to talk about.
Yes. It didn't air here in the U.S. or Canada or Zimbabwe or Lithuania or pretty much anywhere on this planet. I think that was also on Tatooine. You had to be there to.
I was going to say it might have been on Tatooine. Yeah.
But I think that there's some stuff we can talk about there that includes some new rumors and casting stuff that would not spoil the show. So I think it's safe to talk about. Mm-hmm. And we've obviously got Celebration coming up. And there's one other thing I felt like was right on the tip of my tongue before I started talking. But we've got a couple of other things that we have to discuss yet in Star Wars coming up. So that is going to do it for this episode of Force Chatter. Thank you for everybody in the chat room who's been hanging out with us. Don't forget, every Sunday night at typically a little bit after 8 p.m. Eastern time, we stream this and then Random Chatter. So if you are listening to this live, stick around. We'll be back in about another 10 or 15 minutes. And Tuesday nights, we used to do Movie Chatter. Now we're doing Media Chatter because we are also going to be covering streaming shows as well, because honestly, there are a lot of those that are better than a lot of the movies that have been coming out recently and things we've been wanting desperately to talk about.
Right. A lot of really good stuff that just came out recently that we're
we covered Reacher, the new series on Amazon Prime last Tuesday. And this Tuesday, we're covering Inventing Anna. Is that what it's called? On Netflix?
Yep. Netflix,
and
based on the true story of Anna Sorokin.
It is interesting. And it's got, I'm going to remember her name, Julia Garner, I think, from Ozark, playing the lead. Yeah, it's a good series. Anyway, so catch that Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And that is going to do it for this episode of Force Chatter. So until next time, take care.